Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News.
Step into the sand.
This is Macabre Grimoire with Ari Show, Travis Nye, and Robert Mayling.
Hey everybody, welcome to Macabre Grimoire, Chapter 7, Chung Ling Soo, a.k.a. William Robinson.
A sordid tale of magic and deception.
Oh man, I love this guy. It's such a crazy story. Because he's like... Okay, so do you have anything that you want to go into first? Because usually you do the history, but...
You really like this guy. I will just fill in some gaps from
Okay.
anecdotes, but go ahead and jump in there.
I will. All right, so I first heard about this guy when I was watching this program on Netflix called Mysteries at the Museum. I'm pretty sure it's on regular TV, but I don't have regular TV. I just have Netflix. Anyways, that's a side tangent. But they start talking about this poster and about how it's this magician from the East. He's from Asia or China or whatever, and he doesn't speak any English, and his shows are like super mysterious, and he had like this great following in the United States because people were so intrigued by his magic and the fact that he never once spoke English at all. And so his death was really mysterious because he was shot and killed during one of his shows. And So what happened is he does this bullet trick where he's supposed to catch this bullet as the gun is being fired at him, and he's very successful with this trick, and everybody loves seeing this trick because this is like the star part of his show. Well, he gets shot, and all of a sudden he says, "Oh dear God, something went wrong," and now the audience is all like, "The fuck? He speaks English?" And then he collapses, and then they basically like end the show, and then he ends up dying like a few hours later. Well, come to find out, the person who shot him was his assistant, but she's always shot him during his shows. Like, this is part of their act. So she shoots him with the gun. The gun actually fires the bullet. It's supposed to fire a blank, but it actually fires the bullet that he loads the gun with, because you always load the gun with the bullet for the audience's purposes, but really it's just firing a blank because it's like a secret chamber, like a second chamber in the gun. And so the bullet fires off, shoots him, he gets shot through the chest, he ends up dying. Well, now the investigators are like, "Okay, lady, better start talking." And so then they find out that he's actually American. His actual name is William Robinson. He's not Asian. And even though, like, he cut his hair, he grew it out, like, he, like, went, like, to the full, like, 9 yards to look as Asian as possible. So people were, like, surprised when they found out that he wasn't Chinese. I mean, he even had a Chinese interpreter with him while he would kind of speak, like, broken Chinese. The reporters didn't know because they don't speak Chinese, It's such a bizarre thing.
My favorite anecdote about that with the reporter
Yeah.
is that... So he didn't have a Chinese translator. He had a Japanese man who basically would pretend to, like, interpret and understand what he was saying.
Yes.
So basically he'd say gibberish.
Yep.
And then the
Japanese, or the quote-unquote Chinese translator.
Yeah, the Chinese translator, that's the Japanese guy, would come up with, like, some kind of, like, he says he's very honored by this gift.
Yes.
And then when he'd translate something for Chung Lee, quote unquote, he would just speak in Japanese to him, and he'd nod like he knew what that meant, but he'd heard the English and knew what that meant.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my God, it's such a beautiful thing. Anyways, so they investigate the assistant. Well, turns out the assistant is his wife, aka first mistress. And that he actually has another mistress, a much younger one, who gave birth to a child just recently. So now it's like, okay, why did you shoot and kill your husband? And she's like, I didn't. So they had to investigate. Turns out the gun was actually, because I don't think they had cleaned the gun very well in between shows, and enough gunpowder had filled up in the chamber, so then when she did fire it, it actually fired off the live bullet, which ended up, killing him. And they deemed it, the whole thing, just a freak accident. But what a wild ride, and, like, what a wild, like, scenario to be, like, you're at this show, and you think this guy is, like, fully on Asian, and all of a sudden he's just like, "Oh, dear God," and you're like, "Whoa! English? What?" And then, oh my God, he's dead! Like, ugh! So,
So it's funny you bring up his relationship because
yes,
everything about this guy is just like, honestly, I had forgotten the whole part about he died doing a bullet catch because that's like the least interesting thing about him. It is, and that's an amazing story in and of itself.
Right.
He was actually the fourth magician to ever die doing the bullet catch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the first person to ever die doing a bullet catch was actually a female magician in like the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
So who's like the second and third?
I actually have it. I can tell you names if you'd like to know names.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, cool. So the first person who did it was Madame de Linskey, and she died in 1820.
Mm-hmm.
Way back.
Due to lead poisoning.
Oof.
Ooh.
Bullet catch.
Right.
Bullet, mental floss.
Sure.
Arnold Buck in 1840, Professor Adam Epstein in 1869, and then our Chung Ling Soo in 1918.
It's so interesting that each one's like about 20 to 40 years apart. Like it's always like an even numbered amount of years.
It's like the next generation.
Maybe
they did it wrong. I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah,
I've got to be smarter than those assholes.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Which, if you've watched The Illusionist. Yeah. Okay.
Or no. The Prestige is the one that has the where they talk about the bullet catch. And
Okay. What am I? No, I am thinking of maybe it's the Houdini movie that came out on the History Channel.
Okay.
Because they actually load the gun. Mm-hmm. His assistant does, but it shows that they used a steel bullet. And so the rod that they'd used to pack the wadding and everything had a magnet on it. It would actually retract that steel ball.
Oh, cool.
So it was actually a real gun, really loaded. The audience would drop it in there, and when they'd pull the plunger out, it'd extract the ball or the bullet with it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And so there's been a lot of different variations, and I'm sure it's a lot of people being like, oh, this guy died because he did it this way. Now let's die this way.
Right.
So
yeah, bringing up the Prestige, I always thought that was super interesting because I knew about how bullet catches are super dangerous and deadly and stuff.
Yeah.
But the whole that's actually a thing that happened where Hugh Jackman shows up for the bullet catch.
Yeah.
And the magicians are even I don't like doing it because it's super dangerous, but it's good money because people are no, people die doing it.
Right.
And so what did he do in the movie? He put a coin or something he put something hard.
Yeah.
In the chamber after the whole magnet pulling the bullet out.
Okay, so it was that movie that he did the magnet.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. It's funny though because even David Blaine does the bullet catch now.
Yeah, Dominic was mentioning that.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen it, you need to look it up. Where he actually has a mouthpiece designed for his mouth with a steel cup that he puts in there. And they've done high-speed slow-motion video of a .22 rifle, Olympic rifle, that's super accurate on a tripod. Shoot, and you see the slow-motion bullet going into the cup, and the cup gets wedged in the back of his throat and actually catches the bullet. So Penn of Penn and Teller went on this huge tangent, basically saying every bad name about David Blaine possible, saying, "How dare you do this stunt because you're going to have a whole new generation wanting to try it, whether it is real or not.
Right.
You have just sold this to be a real stunt that is actually possible."
I was just about to bring up the Penn and Teller. Part of their claim to fame is their very good bullet catch trick.
Yeah.
Right. But
you don't watch it the bullet fly in slow motion.
Right, exactly. So he has a whole science team of high-speed cameras where Penn and Teller perform it, but they have an extremely high disclaimer thing, and it's just magic. And after David Blaine blew up because of this, they basically came out and said ours is just a trick. As to where David Blaine is trying to pull it off as it's a real, science proven,
dangerous
stunt.
Oh, that makes me so nervous.
So I don't know if David Blaine actually really does it the way that it's shown in his series in the slow motion. I believe it would be.
Sure.
But I don't know for sure.
Because Dominic said he thought he had basically shot himself in the face and broken some teeth or something, but
the first time he did it, the dentist who made the mouthpiece for him didn't make it strong enough, and the mouthpiece actually busted, and that's when the cup got lodged clear to the back of his throat.
Okay, so that's what he's
talking.
Cut
the roof of his mouth and his tonsil area and stuff. Pretty bad.
And then he still did it again.
Yeah, he's done it like 2 or 3 times, and he just did his tour where he was actually going to do it live on stage, but his stage crew said that if you're going to do it, we're not going to be in your show.
Yeah.
Which could have been a publicity stunt to make it seem like
Possibly.
it's real.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, like, it makes you wonder, like, is it real?
It's funny how much, with magicians, how much is just pure
bullshit.
Sun Tzu, psychological warfare kind of stuff. Like, like the... anyone with weak constitutions should leave the theater now.
Oh, that's me.
Because it's sketching in the vaudeville era, and then the like gimmicks like Sun Tzu, and then Chung Ling, and then like in the Prestige again, referencing my only point of data on magicians practically. The part where he has nothing but blind stagehands,
right?
And Hugh Jackman sees that and assumes that. That's totally just like a gimmick or whatever. It's like, oh, that's a brilliant gimmick.
Yeah.
To just have all blind stagehands just to build hype about.
Yeah.
It's like, his secrets are so dark and so secret.
That not even his crew knows.
Yeah.
Oh my god. That's funny. I need to see that.
Yep. It's pretty good.
Cool. So we were talking about his relationship. We're talking about William Robinson's relationships.
Yes. So digging into that, so he got married... When he was 21, he married a 16-year-old named Bessie Smith in 1883.
Hashtag gross. But it was...
Hashtag no kidding, but that was the times.
Yep.
But, yeah. Okay, and he had 2 children with her, I believe?
Yeah, but here's the weird part. Their son, they were like, he doesn't get along with the family. So they put him up for adoption. Like, what?
I was just listening to the companion book, the guy that does Aaron Mahnke that does the podcast Lore.
Oh, yeah, Love him.
Puts out books now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I pre-ordered, so I just got it today, book number 2, and I was listening to it, and there was a story in there. I don't want to give anything away on that, but there was basically like this one children's story that you hear, and like fairy tales always have like dark origins and stuff like that. But I did not realize that the dark origin of this particular story, and I won't give it away, is actually to cover up the fact that the town basically was in trouble and they sold their children basically into slavery to make up the gap. And so this is the story they came up with that covers for why there were no children in that town or whatever. And what they ended up telling the next generation that came up and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
And I didn't know that. I figured it was something dark, but I figured it was like plague or something. But it's like, no, it's like this was like
financial reasons.
It was a financial and kind of medieval governmental thing because basically the Prussian or the Holy Roman Emperor basically was like every village is going to give this many people, and that's what's even really shitty about it is this like. So you can either, volunteer to go settle in this new territory we've conquered that's in a dangerous disputed border territory with Poland, or you can pay some money and send children who we will put to work, settling and farming in that area.
Oh, God.
And it talks about, like, in the phone book, you can actually see the surnames, because they have, this is a time when there's, like, writing and records, so it's like, you could look at the surnames, and a whole bunch of these towns in eastern Poland have the same names, and a whole bunch of the people in that region have like the same last names as this town because basically they sent all their kids to go settle East Poland.
Oh, Jesus. Wow. Yeah, so he had 2 kids, but with Bessie, a son and a daughter. The son, they were just like, he's not working out. Let's send him to an orphanage, which was super weird.
Mind-blowing.
And then, especially at a time when like people have kids like by the dozen. I mean, it was just kind of bizarre that it was just like just the 2 kids and they send the other one off, especially a son, off to be in an orphanage. Kind of a testament
to how little interest he had in kids.
Yeah. Oh, God. He had no interest in being a father. And then as he's with Bessie, he ends up getting a side piece who her name's, oh, my God, Olivia? Or it was something else, but no, it was Augusta, but she went by Olivia. And they start, hanging out. Then eventually him and his actual wife have like a falling out, but they're okay with it. They never get officially divorced. And then
because they're Catholic, they can't get
exactly.
divorced.
So then
So instead they just become polygamists, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. So him and Olivia are now like together, and they're touring all over the place doing shows, and they just start referring to themselves as Mr. and Mrs. Robinson, and they say that they're married, and everybody's like, okay, that's cool. Like, nobody checks it, because why would you?
It's not like it's the era of the internet, and nobody's going to Google that shit.
Yeah, nobody cares. I mean, not like anybody Googles our marriages, you know what I mean?
They probably could have looked up on MySpace in that time, though, right?
Yeah,
probably.
On the Yahoo. Yeah.
And Tom would be your friend. So then as he's with Olivia, I think he does end up having one kid with her.
It's possible.
But then eventually, she gets older, and he ends up getting another side piece, but she's young, like, I don't know, 18 or something. And I don't know how old he is at this point, probably 40 something. And she ends up getting pregnant, but she's all like, oh no, I'm not going away. I'm going to be super important in your life, and you're going to help me raise this baby. And he's like, fuck. Now what? And now his wife finds out, / fake wife. But they did end up getting married, I think. Anyway, which is a whole nother thing. But anyway, so he's like, well, I guess I got to raise this kid. And then she finds out, that he has a kid with this other woman. And then then he ends up getting shot and killed. So that's why it was super sketchy that he ends up getting shot by his wife on stage.
Nice.
Well, the funny thing about it is that the next person that actually died from the bullet catch was known as the Black Wizard of the West.
Oh, no.
And I really want that to be my name, but I want to be like the White Wizard in Duel.
Oh, my God.
The Midwest. But he was actually murdered by his wife on stage.
Holy shit.
Oh,
yeah.
snap.
Yeah, he used wax bullets that would basically deteriorate from the heat of the gun.
Oh, sure.
But she switched him out for real bullets and then basically just gunned him down live on stage.
God damn it. Was it because he had mistresses?
I didn't look into his backstory, but the Black Wizard of the West, come on. It's sketchy.
Yeah, super sketch.
Gotta watch those magicians.
Oh my god.
God.
Oh my gosh.
He wasn't a magician, he was a wizard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A wizard's totally different.
Totally different.
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting, though, that he toured with two different magicians that were like really popular at the time before he finally went out and made a name for himself as Chung Ling Soo.
He copied a German magician first, almost his whole act. But from what I read about him, it seems like he just basically stole everybody's successful material
Yep.
and basically died because of it. So there's karma.
Yeah, pretty much. Because, I remember the names of the two magicians. But, like, you had Harry Houdini, who was around at the time, and then... And then, so it was like magicians of that caliber and of that, fame for the era. And he toured with one of them. They changed his name to like some, I don't know.
The first name he went by was Hop Ling Soo.
Yeah.
And that was like his practicing name before he actually perfected his routine.
Yep.
Right.
In 1899, he left the company where he was under the German magician that he was basically stealing a lot of secrets from. Left that and stole another idea and set out on his own. He reinvented himself as Hop Sing Lu, a Chinese-speaking magician. He shaved his mustache and his hairline and donned a wig with a long braid in the back. He also used grease paint to change his skin tone and purchase a costume from Chinatown.
That's dedication. His wife even, fake wife, even dressed the same way too.
Oh, yeah, right here. Path added to the deception by becoming a Chinese princess, and Robinson hired a real Chinese juggler, Fi Lung, to round out the performance.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, what is he going to do? Like, oh, hello, these are my white kids.
Oh, God. That's so inappropriate.
Eventually, Robinson got an invitation from a manager, Ike Rose, in France, to bring Hop Sing Lu, and his troupe to Europe. Robinson sold his Leviathan illusion and collection of books to help finance the trip. In March of 1900, Hop Sing Lu appeared on the stage for the first time, and the show was a disaster. Lu's magic was slow and deliberate, and the trick involving a large bowl of water went awry, which totally makes me think that's what they were going for in, once again, in The Prestige, because that's the trick he's doing on stage, is one with a giant bowl of water that he was carrying, between his legs the whole time. Oh my gosh. So So the water went awry, and it was sent cascading into the orchestra pit and drenching all of the musicians and their instruments.
Oh, Jesus.
Despite the opening night mishap, Rose managed to convince the theater owner to keep Hop Sing Loo on the bill for the contracted week, deducting damages to the theater from his salary.
That's fair.
Robinson settled into the role and refined the illusions, and he felt more confident as Hop Sing Loo than he had ever had as it himself. The next stop on his tour was London. They made one major change to his act. He hated the biggest thing he changed was that he hated the name Hop Sing Loo and insisted that Robinson change it. This was someone in London here.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
So he changed it to Chung Ling Soo, the actual real Chinese magician, who we're going to get into the whole rivalry and backstory there, was gaining popularity in America at the time. And since Robinson was already appropriating Foo's character by a couple of tricks, why not go all the way and imitate his name? So Robinson became Chung Ling Soo. Yeah, and Path became Su Sween. Let's see. Yeah, there was virtually nothing in Su's act that was authentically Chinese, since Su, as he was known to the press, didn't speak English. Even talking to the press was another gimmick. A reporter would ask Li Fi Lung a question, which he would repeat to Su in actual Chinese. Su would respond in Chinese-sounding gibberish, which Fi Lung would translate back into English. So this must be before he's got the Japanese translator, because that's the one that blew me away. It was just like,
oh, sure.
So literally there's like 3 different languages going on there, but no one can tell.
Right.
So I want to know what went on behind the curtain, because if some dude was just like answering for me all the time and like misspoke, but not able to correct him, like that would piss me off.
Discipline, man.
I think you would probably rehearse your answers and like kind of already know what your answers were going to be.
Right. Yeah.
Because in order to successfully pull it off without William Robinson being like, you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So even though fellow magicians and other performers knew that Robinson was Chung Ling Soo, the public embraced his talent and accepted the guys along with it. Soo became such a crowd pleaser that soon he was earning $5,000 a week with bookings 2 years in advance.
Dang.
$5,000
that's how
a
my
week
life is,
in like 19... Yeah, you know. Absolutely.
That's
just like podcasting. It's all about the exotic cars and world travel.
Yeah, that's why you have this big stripper pole in here right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why would that be elaborate?
Well, I mean, the pole isn't. It's who's on it. It's all the women that just flood through this.
Yes.
Podcast.
But
that's the thing when you're a podcaster, is that members of the opposite sex just constantly throw themselves at you. They can't help it. Yeah.
Even some of the same sex.
Yeah.
But that doesn't. So that gives you an establishment of
success.
like of wealth. Is to have a stripper pole and women throwing themselves at you?
Yeah.
Why not just like nice things and paid off student loans?
Well, in real life, that's what it would be.
Oh, okay.
We're doing a bit.
Okay.
See, this is that veil of the magician.
Gotcha.
I'm very boring. If I was super rich, I'd just be probably sitting in the same place where I am right now, and it'd just be like, better shoes. Oh, these shoes are comfy.
I'm going to pay my internet bill for a year, so I just don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
I want a nice used car and a reasonable sized house.
Yeah. I want a certified pre-owned.
Yes. There you go. Now we're talking.
We're moving on up.
That's something that my friend and I always talked about. We always said, like, if we were to get really rich, we wouldn't like be extravagant. We'd just be like moderately above where we are.
Because we all say that if one of us does get rich, we're going to be the one like in the like hover car. And,
I was going to say,
I don't know. I don't
living
think so.
in a trailer park with a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
I guess I can't even say that. I can't say that. I guess we'll find out.
No, I'm very humble. Look where I live. But look at your car.
It's a Lambo.
Yeah, it doesn't make it over the speed bump.
I live in it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh. Okay, so
the $5,000 a week is what he's making, which is like a lot of money in that time.
Even now.
Well, yeah, even now.
So okay, here it is. Like after that, his troupe grew to 14 people, including a new juggler stage manager named Frank Kamataro, who was Japanese, and he was the one who did he spoke Japanese and English, but not Chinese. So during interviews, he would translate for Sue in his own version of what a Japanese person thinks Chinese sounds like.
Jesus. Yeah, that sounds about right.
which they said sounded very, very different from the fake Chinese his boss was speaking. None of the reporters seemed to notice, as nothing was ever written about it.
Well, it's interesting that he was able to kind of fake Chinese when he had his Chinese quote-unquote translator, because like the words would be very similar, the same similar kind of dialect, but then when you get into Japanese, it's like he's still faking the Chinese and the other guy's like, oh, I don't know. This is close enough.
This guy, crazy. Okay, so in, then the conflict begins. In 1904, Chung Ling Soo, keep in mind the real one, began a European tour in London, and he was getting limited bookings because Sue's act had kind of sucked up all the money, and that was, he's the real one, and so he had booked up for 2 years, and everyone's like, no, we've seen the real Chinese magician.
Oh God.
And so Fu challenged Sue to a duel of magic, which is something out of Hogwarts, to prove who is the real Chinese illusionist. Fu set the terms. Now, Fu's the real guy.
Yep.
I'm reminding myself because it's hard to keep track of. He would win if Sue failed to do 10 out of 20 of Fu's tricks. And if he failed any one of Sue's illusions. Robinson accepted the challenge. Robinson knew that losing would cost him his career, so he solicited the help of an old friend for an ace-in-the-hole trick. Magician Harry Houdini agreed to teach Robinson one of his best illusions. I wish the article went into more depth about that, because I want to hear more about, how did they meet and how
right.
It's just I'm sure it's magic is an industry like anything else. You meet the people in it, and you cross paths, and you network, even pre-LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So one day, on the day
Okay, so it took me a minute to figure out you said pre-LinkedIn. Yeah. I thought that was another Chinese guy we were talking about.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I was like, who's this guy?
Awesome. That is awesome.
I wanted to give you an LOL at that point, but I was like, no, I'll let the audience do an LOL, because that was good.
Nice. On the day of the event, Sue and his entourage arrived in pompous splendor. The small audience consisted of theater managers, who were the judges, reporters, and Harry Houdini himself. After waiting half an hour for his competitor to show up, Sue entertained the crowd with 10 successive tricks and was pronounced the winner.
Because Fu didn't even show up.
Yeah, which I'd like to know more about that story too.
I think he might have been hoodwinked or whatever.
Maybe he was tricked, or maybe it was another European guy pretending to be a Chinese guy, and he's like, crap, he's onto me.
Yeah, right. I can't really do this.
It's that first German guy he copied that supposedly died.
Mm-hmm.
So, from that day forward, Robinson changed the publicity for his performance from the wonderful Chinese conjurer to the original Chinese conjurer.
Good for him.
Which, as Travis said before the show, if you put original in the name...
it's usually not the original.
It's usually not the original thing.
Sure.
But hilarious, nonetheless. So, and then we get into the whole, after 20 years of being together, Robinson and Path, both in their 40s, decided to do the right thing, so to speak, and get married in a brief civil ceremony in March 1906 in England.
Aw, so nice for them. Until...
Yeah. Robinson was still technically married to Bessie, although he claimed to be divorced. So his affairs made his devotion to Path dubious. One of the objects of his affection... Okay, so this is just talking about more affairs he had beyond Path, which, I'm sorry, if someone cheats on someone else for you, it's usually a good indication that they are going to, in turn, turn around and...
do it again.
Yeah. It's like, what makes you special? You know what I mean?
Right.
Feel sorry for the first one. The rest of them, you kind of had it coming.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If they knew. This almost gets into a... I can't remember his name. H.H. Holmes scenario, where it's got, franchises in every town of, secret families.
Yeah.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Robinson stayed married for the good of the act and created a business partnership. Path started receiving a weekly salary for being Soo Soon and all of her responsibilities behind the scenes. The members of the troupe referred to them as Mr. and Mrs. Soo, and when Blatchford came to visit, they called her Mrs. Robinson.
Jesus. That's so confusing.
I need a fucking diagram to keep track of the boss and his mistresses.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
The family tree just in mistresses alone.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. And so Robinson got a permanent residence, built a workshop behind his house so he could test and build illusions. After 2 more children were born, Robinson spent more time in the workshop than he did with his family. Surprise, surprise. And so then we get to the, Tarantino this back to the beginning where we talked about him getting shot. Mm-hmm. The trick that ended up actually killing him. So Chung Ling Soo incorporated Herman's bullet catching trick into his own act, although he performed it very rarely. In 1918, he added it to his repertoire for a week of shows near London. On Saturday night, he was a guest in his there was a guest in his dressing room while he was preparing the guns. He mentioned that he didn't feel well. While he stepped out for a moment, Soo Sween got the weapons and put them on the prop table backstage. And then the stage manager called places.
You already know where this is going, guys.
Yep. The audience was thrilled that they would be seeing Soo perform the Defying the Bullets toward the end of the show. So at about 10:45, 2 volunteers from a distance marked the bullets that were to be used, and Soo and his assistants got into position. Immediately after the command to fire, Soo staggered backwards and blood started pouring out of his chest. The audience wasn't sure if this was part of the act until Soo said in perfect English, "Oh my God, something's happened, lower the curtain." The curtain dropped, and they played a newsreel. Would you stick around for that newsreel?
Well, in today's news, Chung Ling Soo died from chest.
Dateline, you're up. Let's see.
Oh, the humanity!
Yeah, he's like screaming behind the curtain.
Yeah,
just everyone's just sitting there awkwardly eating their popcorn while there's like screaming behind the curtain.
And you can hear the news, like you can see the news clip, hear the news clip, but then you hear like his screaming.
Yelling in the background, like, "I can't believe you shot me with a real bullet."
Oh God, I'm dying. We're morbid.
Yeah, I was just realizing how morbid that was that we were doing that, because it's just like, we're sitting here like, "Oh, I'm dying." Ooh. But he really was like,
he really was
dying.
Legit dying, yeah.
Let's see, the coroner's inquest, at the coroner's inquest, Path had to reveal the secret of the trick to the jury so that they could understand what happened. She also had to explain the triangle of her husband, and the woman he was living with. After testimony by Robinson and other assistants, the coroner and a gun expert and the jury ruled Soo's death an accident, calling it death by misadventure. Which, hell yeah, I want that on my epitaph. It's like, how did he die? Misadventure. Flipped his vet.
Flipped his vet. Horse and carriage went off a cliff and blew up.
Yeah. Is that Family Guy or
when the horse?
Yeah, he's fighting the Amish and then knocks the Amish guys. So the cart explodes. The horse is just looking around like, "Oh no, not now!"
And then the horse explodes.
Good times. So that is Mr. and Mrs. Robinson, the Chung Ling.
The real
Soo.
Meet the Robinsons.
Yes, the real Meet the Robinsons.
The original.
Yeah, pretty much.
With way more polygamy.
Yeah.
Way more. Yeah, I like this one.
Me too. It's an interesting story. Travis, what kind of unique perspective you have on this whole thing? I mean, it's like, let's see. So how much do you get into like the history of magic, like with magicians, stuff like that? Because I know you're a big Houdini fan.
Yeah. So basically, one of the biggest things, there's a saying in magic, there's somebody who does tricks, and then there's a magician.
Okay.
Whoa.
I know, right? It gets pretty heavy.
Oh man, I don't even know how to think about that.
Right?
Okay, keep going.
So basically, somebody does tricks is like your typical, like, high school kid or whatever.
Sure.
Just entertains his friends here and there and then never looks back and does it again. The magician actually knows the history and origins of everything they do, even a simple, like, how to cut a deck of cards.
Sure.
They all have different names and stuff like that, and the origins of who created them. And so knowing that stuff is extremely valuable, especially when you start creating tricks. You need to credit the person who does it, or you're going to get eaten alive in the magic community.
Gotcha.
Saying, you didn't make this, give credit where credit
That's
is
the
due.
other thing. Go into that a little bit, like the magic community. Whenever you talk about it, it sounds like it is like an incredibly tight-knit group.
Yeah, it really is, and we hate each other.
What? Why?
Sharky competitive.
It's not so much competitive. There's a lot of big egos in magic.
No way.
I know. Can you believe that? Like, it's the only
People
place
who
I've
want
ever
their
seen
names
them.
emblazoned on the front of a theater and like all eyes on me.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
God, that's gotta suck with all the egos.
But
But are you kind of one of them too?
No, not really. I'm pretty confident.
Yeah.
And pay attention to myself, and everybody else will kind of fade away.
Sure.
But there's a lot of people out there who copy what other people are doing, and even a lot of the magic stuff that creators sell. People will watch the video of teaching you how to do it, like the mechanics of it, and then it'll teach you like a routine, like the actual presentation, and that's what everybody does. So every trick is a carbon copy. So that is somebody just doing tricks.
Yes.
To be a magician is taking this and creating something completely new out of it. Saying like,
Oh, I
okay,
see.
so I want to make something go from A to B. I need a bullet to go from one side of the stage to the other without actually making it go through the gun.
Sure.
So I know how to do it. Now how can I disguise it? So basically the secret is how to get the bullet out of the gun, or how to get that autograph onto another bullet, basically if somebody signs the bullet. So once you know the basic idea, it's like now the real magic is distracting and misdirecting the audience. So that's where it becomes real secretive. Like even just recently, you probably seen in the news, David Copperfield was being sued because however many years ago someone tripped going backstage under the stage during an illusion where the audience vanished, and David Copperfield was pretty much forced to expose this illusion that he's done for 13 years to prove that he wasn't at fault.
Oh, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah, and today he was actually just awarded, he won the trial and said the other guy was at fault and everything else.
Oh my God.
So I take it must have countersued for like the lost income from having to reveal the...
I don't know. Copperfield's pretty well set.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Like the dude owns islands.
Yeah.
So what happened?
So basically, I can't remember exactly how many years it was, but some guy went up with a group of people on stage, do a disappearing act where he makes people in the audience disappear.
Sure.
The veil comes up, he makes them go under the stage to a trap door, run through this hallway to the back of the stage, and then appear somewhere else.
Okay.
So some guy tripped in the process.
Oh.
And now, however many years later, he's saying that he has physical damage, he can't work, he hasn't been able to work for however many years.
What?
And when he comes into the courtroom, like, he comes in with, like, assistants, like, helping him walk.
Are you kidding me?
But there's footage, like, lawyers and, like, investigators and stuff going out now that this trial has come to surface, videotaping him out, like, walking his dog.
Someone was putting on their own performance.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes. So they're basically doing the acting as Chung Ling Soo did, essentially.
Right.
Saying, yes, I'm injured, it happened because of this, and they're like, we've been doing this routine for 13 years, like, there's no way... Like, the guy said there was construction debris down there, and he's like, no, like, this is a 13-year act, like, this is scripted, patterned, like, nothing has ever happened.
Right.
So,
Holy cow.
yeah.
Wow.
So when Copperfield basically was forced to expose that, the magic community blew up.
Yeah, I bet.
Because, one, Copperfield tried to do it kind of behind closed doors a little bit, but then, like, no, this needs to be public information. So now the whole recreating process happens. Now they need to prove that it can happen without the trapdoor. So now the whole next generation of magicians is going to say, I want to do the same thing, but everybody knows how to do it. Let's figure out how to do it a different way.
Gotcha.
So basically...
Get zombie David Bowie to build us a replicator.
Exactly. But one of the cool things, though, that Chung Ling Soo actually started out doing in his career, it talks about black art illusions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really, really cool. It's basically like camo on steroids.
Okay.
Under the right lighting, if you put a black surface on top of another black surface, they blend together and you never know anything is on top. And that's basically what it is.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So imagine like a foreground and a middle ground of the same pattern or surface.
Yep.
And then in between those two layers, somebody can hide and then reappear seamlessly without
You're right. Without anybody
where
knowing.
they go, because they don't know. It just looks like a solid wall.
Right. Right.
And so that's essentially probably where the next method will go, where people will actually be on stage the whole time. Just everybody thinks they disappeared.
Wow.
Just, audience, everybody come up here. You're gone. Wait, I'm still here. Shut up. The audience can't see you, but they can hear you.
Yeah. You're mic'd.
Yeah, right?
I'm invisible. Shut up, Louis.
But yeah, so that's where the real controversy comes in, because even though, like, the tricks are essentially the same, you can't expose your method really without somebody stealing it, because there's always people out there who are going to do that.
Yep.
And so when somebody says, oh, that's not your trick, somebody else invented it, then it's up to you. Be like, okay, do I just sit here and be quiet, or do I say, no, I do it differently, prove it, this is how I do it. Just because you get the same results doesn't mean it's the same trick.
Gotcha.
And that's where a lot of the egos and kind of arguing goes on in the magic community.
Can you patent a magic trick?
Penn and Teller are the first one. Well, Teller is the first one to officially do it.
Okay.
The exact same thing, Copperfield style. Somebody took him to court for stealing a trick. Or I think Teller actually took this other person to court for stealing a trick. And he was the first and only magician to ever win as intellectual property of owning this, and had to prove, like, it was a 7-year trial.
Ugh.
And Teller would not back down. He's like
a mountain of God. I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
But good for him. I mean, sticking to his guns and knowing, like, no, you stole my art.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you?
Yep.
So, do you have any, like, tricks like that, or do you just, like, what style do you follow?
You know, I mean, there's a few things. One of the things that I really like to do when I buy a trick, a lot of times you'll get like the special little device or whatever to help you accomplish these things, and I don't even read the instructions or watch the tutorial. I'm like, okay, what does this do? Because it does something cool.
Sure.
And so then basically it's a lot easier to create your own when you don't have a template to go off of. But then again, there's the gray area of like, hey, I just created this. Like, no, you didn't. Somebody's doing it over here. And like, oh, well, is it the same way? Like, well, I'm not telling you my way.
Oh, shoot. So then you don't know.
You never know if you have the first original piece.
Sure.
Until I go famous and doing it worldwide for 10 years, then somebody comes out and be like, well, I've been doing that for...
Would you just back down and be like, all right, okay, fine?
Probably, because if I've been doing it for 10 years, it's time to retire it anyway.
Yeah.
So,
can I ask, how much money do you have invested in all of your tricks?
You know, okay, so here's the trouble with magic. Not only do we not talk about our methods, but even when you buy it, you don't know what you're getting. Okay. So it's like buying a college book saying you're going to learn how to do equations like this. And then you get it, be like, oh, I don't really want to do it that way.
Sure.
So then you just scrap the book and don't do anything with it.
So then you don't count it as...
They can't give you a preview of how it...
Exactly.
Ooh.
So you're basically blind buying all of your magic. It's like going on a blind date. Your buddy's like, no, it's really good, dude. Like, it's really, really good. You should go out
and you're like,
with
this sucks.
Yeah, then you're like, no, I don't want this. Go away.
But then you've already spent the money on it.
Right. And so now you have the intellectual property in your mind you can't return.
But you still bought the trick.
Right.
So how much, so do you even know, like, how much you've spent?
Oh, it's a podcast episode I hope my wife isn't listening to.
If it makes you feel any better, my husband has over 4,800 DVDs in our house.
Okay.
So...
So, on average, when tax purposes and whatnot, I figure about $2,000 to $3,000 a year.
Okay.
On just crap that I really will never use. Like, it's nice because I don't mind doing it.
Sure.
Because I like knowing all the different methods.
Here's why. Okay, so as your fake wife, I'd be okay with that because you're actually performing and then making money to go towards that investment.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
That's the argument.
You want to talk to Amanda about podcasting, man?
See, making money Making money. I'm just kidding.
That's the thing, like, because Dominic, he wants to buy like this like $1,000 camera, and I'm like, as a second camera, and I'm like, I would be okay with that if you were making money off of it.
Right.
But he's not. He's not pursuing like weddings or graduations or anything like that. Like he just wants it so we can have it. And prior to like getting the second camera, he was telling me like, oh, if I get the second camera, now I can legitimately do weddings and have them in Blu-ray disc form and feel better about the product that I'm putting out. So I'm like, okay, I'm on board for that. Well, he gets offered this second camera and he wants to get it. And I'm like, okay, so you're going to do weddings. And he was like, oh, I don't want to do weddings. I'm like, then you can't get the camera.
That's the first plug. Like, we're going to get you on board with this first one.
Right. Like, you got to be a business person about this. So that's why I would be okay with what you're investing and spending.
Yeah. But because I have all this stuff and all this knowledge built up, I do have other magicians, some local, some distant, that do call me or message me or email me.
Sure.
And be like, hey, I'm trying to accomplish this. How can we do it? Mm-hmm. And then I'll work with them a little bit on that. So I have like the creative aspect of it, but it's also really difficult because I can't enjoy a magic show because like I'm analyzing it the whole time.
That's kind of Dominic when watching horror films because he just analyzes it the whole time.
Yeah. So like
graphic design.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any kind of like signage or anything like that, or like logos, I'm pulling them apart with my eyes.
Yeah.
I can't not do it.
I went through that phase too when I was doing a lot of graphic design.
The cool thing is we just went to watch The Illusionists Broadway show down at the Pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And I'm familiar with all of them who performed. They're big names in magic. But I didn't really know what they were going to perform.
Oh.
And so my wife and I were there watching it, and I see one of the guys steal watches off 3 people during the show. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like...
You know it. You're on it.
When is he going to give the watches back? But I can't tell anybody. And then, like, he didn't give them back till the end of the show. And my wife, like, she's like, he didn't take watches? Like, he didn't give them back? And I'm like... I swear he took watches, and then at the end he's like, oh, and by the way, here's your watch, and here's your watch. I'm like, oh, thank God, I thought I was going crazy. I'm like, I'm just creating a show as I watch it.
You're like having a small panic attack.
Yeah, right?
Like, when are they going to reveal it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But then there's also times like that where, like, I see them do the traditional stuff, like steal somebody's watch.
Oh, sure.
And because I'm looking for that, and I see the exact same motions and movements and misdirections, and then something else happens, like they stole their shoe, which that's not that's a poor example.
Sure, but no, I understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, but then I'm like, oh my God, how'd they get their shoe? I thought they got their watch.
Oh,
and
I
so
gotcha.
then like I go home and I'm like at the drawing board, like this huge equation to figure out how to get somebody's shoe.
The one trick that always like blew my mind was stealing the underwear. Like,
yeah.
That's a tricky one, because then wouldn't you have to know, like, what kind of underwear they're wearing to make them think that it's their underwear?
Yeah, typically the nice thing is you pick people out who just want to be on stage and be the show.
Oh.
And then they don't say anything, they just go with it.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
My very first pickpocket routine that I did, I'd take out my own wallet.
Yeah.
When I'd be leaning up against the guy, and I'd hold my own wallet above the guy's head, behind him, and the audience thought I stole the wallet.
Nice.
And he didn't know anything that was going on.
Nice.
But at the end, and then I'd pretend to put it back, and then I'd hold up like 2 $1 bills, and people's laughing like, oh, he just took his money, and then I'd give the guy $2. I'm like, oh, here, you forgot this. And he's like, oh, cool, I get $2. But the whole audience thinks that I just took
gave it back to him. Yeah.
It's a $2 trick, and it goes extremely well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I like that.
Very cool.
So, yeah, it's pretty much all psychology and,
manipulation.
Yeah, making people think you did something that really didn't happen.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just premiered our short film, Mr. Pointy, and we didn't really have much for illusions in this one, but at the very end there was a monster that appears in the closet. And after our short film showed, usually when you show at a festival, you have a Q&A. Yeah. So nobody really had any questions about the film or anything like that, which is 100% normal. Like, it's always like dead eyes looking at you like, I got nothing. Like, nobody gives a shit. So you're just like, all right, cool, thanks. And then you like go back and sit down. Well, then as I get back to my seat, this guy taps me on my shoulder, and he's like, I wanted to ask a question, but my wife didn't want me to. I'm like, oh, okay, bitch. Like, there goes, at least one guy that wanted to ask a question.
That would have started a whole conversation.
Right. And he was just like, what was with the monster? And I was like, oh, well, that was just the monster in the closet. Like, weirdo. And I kind of turned back around. He goes, no. How did you do the monster in the closet? And I was like, Oh! Not realizing that for some people, like, that's a huge, like, how do they do that? Right, you know, like, they want to know. So, yeah.
Especially a small film festival crowd like that.
Yes.
There's a lot of people there that are, like, aspiring filmmakers or just, like, super fascinated.
Oh, yeah, it's just super fascinating.
They want to dig into the, like, the technicals of how did you do that?
Right.
You know, like, I like movies. I don't really know the whole process of them and stuff. But one movie that I really did like about wanting to know the technical aspect of it, which, again, kind of goes into magic, was, I think it was Birdman. Is that the one? With,
Kevin Bacon?
Nope.
Son of a bitch. Oh.
Guy who played Beetlejuice.
Michael Keaton.
Keaton, yeah. But the whole thing, it was uncut. Like, it was a continuous...
Yes.
That was awesome.
Yes, and as filmmakers, we were watching there were some cuts, but it was seamless. Like, it was hard to know when there was a cut. So, like, if you ever, like, see the camera going, like, right in against somebody's back, that's a cut.
Yep, exactly.
When you see something, like, with the camera kind of, like, swivels into like a black area, then that's a cut. The most amazing one though was when they went into the dressing room where there were the mirrors and you have the two actresses standing in front of the mirror and you know the camera is in that space. And you're just like, what? How? And then we watched the behind the scenes after because we wanted to know like how did they accomplish all this, and it was like a fuck ton of rehearsal. They built their set on a sound stage, was just the bare bones, and they just ran through it. Oops, sorry listeners. They just ran through it like over and over and over again with the camera guys, you know, going through all the moves and the motions of this whole routine, and it's just like, God, that's dedication, and that's just fascinating.
Yeah. The first Star Trek movie, I think maybe it was the second one, where they're actually like skydiving out of the Enterprise to back to the Earth.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The behind the scenes on that I thought was really cool. Where basically they just stood on like a big mirror and looked up, and so it reflected the sky that looked like they were standing in the sky, and then the guy just shook the camera real hard, and I'm like, oh my God, that's genius! Like,
there's one. Oh, so there's an illusion in Friday the 13th. I think it's part 1, where I think it's I want to say Kevin Bacon. I don't know. We'll just say it is. I think he's in the first one. Dominic's not gonna listen to this. He doesn't care. Anyway, so he's laying in the bed, right? And he's asleep, and he had just like done it with some chick, right? And Jason hates it when people have sex.
Yep.
And so he's laying there in the bed, and all of a sudden he gets an arrow straight up through his throat, and you're like, oh God, like, and it looks real. Like, how do they do that? Well, then the behind the scenes is actually Kevin's head is just up through the bed with just like his head on the pillow.
Okay.
And he's actually kneeling under the bed. Whereas like they have not a body double, but like a dummy of the rest of his body laying on the bed and then they show the like the arrow going up through the throat and everything, and the blood and blah 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 blah.
Right.
So like that's kind of like Dominic's magic tricks.
I dig it.
Yeah.
That's cool. The mirror thing that makes one of my all-time favorite special effects was they did that same mirror thing where the like camera should be in the shot in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. There's a part where they're like fixing on him and Arnold is sitting in a chair facing the mirror, but he has like a whole chunk of his like back of his head missing.
Ugh.
And yet the camera should be in the shot, it's not. But you've got a perfect reflection, and what it was is they had the stunt doubles facing away. To actually working on a prosthetic head of Arnold's with the giant, like, you know, prosthetics and stuff like that would make no sense. Like, how would you do that?
Oh, sure,
And then on the other side, it's not a mirror, it's the actual cast.
Oh.
Like, reflecting at you.
Oh, funny.
And that was always a trick that just blew me away, because it's like, no way. And then they show it, and it's like, shit! There's no... They're right. It's like, it's either the cleanest mirror in the world, or there's no mirror there.
Right. Yeah. God, yeah. We could talk about movie tricks all day.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many. But I love it. Dominic really likes it. He knows, like, way more than I do, but yeah. Horror movies are just magic tricks. You do magic tricks.
Yeah.
So...
It's all about deception and illusion.
It is.
I don't know what's more difficult, making, like, a movie trick where you can, like, tweak the angles and stuff, I guess. or like actually making it live on stage. Like,
well, you can like invoke a certain like reaction just by changing the edit.
yeah.
So like if you just edit it a certain way, then you don't know the difference. Like I could cut away, like you could like show like a shot of me screaming and then you cut away to something else and all of a sudden you hear me screaming and like you hear like and you assume that I'm being stabbed or whatever gross thing, and your imagination actually fills in the blanks.
Right.
So then there's really no special effect. It's just your brain just working overtime because you're so anxious.
Yeah.
It's cool because there's a whole like, you know, there's stuff like, well, this is gonna sound really dumb and obvious, but it's like there's just amazing stuff that you can do on a live stage that you just could never translate into a movie.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And then by the same token, there's stuff you could do just with editing tricks or like 28 Days Later with their frame rate. That always fucked with me because it's just like everything looks normal, but the frame rate is just a little bit lower than the human perception of, or than the threshold for humans to see movement.
Yeah.
And so, but it's just on that borderline. And so what they did is, so it looks, Bad Boys, you know, other than being a little washed out, everyone looks normal in that movie.
So it was like 23 frames per second instead of 24 frames per second?
It was like 20 frames per second or something
Whoa,
like that. It was
really?
Like,
that's really slow.
so when people are just sitting here talking or they're just like moving along and stuff like that, when there's not an action shot going on, motion is okay normal, other than just a little maybe washed out. But then when the zombies attack, that's why they seemed so fast, and then you get like a strobing effect with the light besides.
Oh.
I remember the first time I saw that movie, that just scared the shit out of me. and then my friend Nick, who is kind of a spatial genius kind of guy, designer, he was just like, oh, they're fucking with the frame rate. So he actually had an advanced DVD, Blu-ray or whatever at the time,
nice. Yeah.
and displayed the frame rate. And he's like, oh, look at that. And you know, he's just like, that's how they did it. He's like, because your brain is perceiving it as motion, except for when someone starts to move quickly, all of a sudden your brain's like, that's not right. And it creates a whole like uncanny creep factor on top of the,
that's
scary.
Clever. That's so clever. What movie was that again?
28 Days Later.
28 Days Later. Okay. Sure, Dominic.
I didn't like the sequels, but the original one was
Sure. That's awesome.
And I don't know about those numbers on the frame rate. I just know that it was fewer frame rates than
normal.
Yeah, because I'm bad at numbers, especially from a conversation I had with someone 15 years ago about...
What? That should just stick with you, man.
I know. But, yeah. So, I don't know how we got here, but... Chung Ling Soo.
It's still all an illusion.
It's all about illusions. So, yeah, and I think with that, we will call it a night. Be sure to follow us on Patreon and to check out all of our perks and offers there. Also, I'll be getting some merchandise onto the store here in the next few weeks. By the time this goes out, it will probably be on the store already.
Awesome.
And then, yeah. So, MacabreGrimoire.com, TheSooEmpire.com.
Oh, and I got news.
Oh, yes.
So I haven't been able to say this for like the last 3 months, and it's been killing me. But, So ever since I started going into like my psychic work and stuff, I've always wanted to get a mentor, and I did obtain a mentor for a short period of time, and he's still my mentor, but more like a friend at this point. But I really needed somebody else that was going to take me a little bit further, and so a friend of mine, she was like, "Have you ever heard of Carmel Joy Baird?" And I was like, "No idea who that is." Well, if you look her up, she's essentially Canada's version of our Teresa Caputo, and she's basically like Long Island Medium. She's Canada's version of Long Island Medium, and she has her own TV show called Mom's a Medium.
I'm gonna nod and pretend I know what that is.
There you go. Which is basically just a reality TV show where she's a medium. She just goes up to people and gives them readings about
cool.
their loved ones that have passed away, and it's touching and it's emotional, and everybody loves that kind of TV show. So anyways, so Carmel does all of these psychic development courses and mediumship development courses, and she was having this one course called Medium Master Class Mentorship I forget how it's worded, but it's basically It's a mentorship program. It's 15 months long, and Carmel is like personally teaching you throughout these 15 months. And it's like the most intense class that she's ever offered. She doesn't know when the next time that she's going to offer this. So it's like, it's basically like you need to jump in on this. The other caveat though is that she's only accepting 10 people to this program because it's such an intense course. So my friend Christy, she's like, you need to apply. And I'm like, I don't even know who this chick is, but okay, sure, like I'll apply. So it's like a 3 application process. So I send in my first application, and it's basically questions like, are you psychic? And do you like do readings? Like, yeah, I do. And I kind of give a little bit of my working background. And then if you get accepted past that, then you got to go to this webinar with Carmel, then she explains like more about the program. So I got accepted past the first phase, which I was kind of like, that's fair. I mean, I do professional readings. Like that's okay. So then they explain more of the program, and they're like, this is going to be very intense. This is going to be, you take up a lot of your time. If you cannot commit to this, do not apply past this phase. So then they send out the second application, and I was like, I don't know if I want to, because I flake out on a lot of stuff. Like I do. And I'm just being honest with myself. So I'm thinking, I don't know if I should do this. And then I had until like Saturday night at midnight to respond. And I was like, I don't think I can. So I talked to Christy about it on a Friday afternoon, and she's like, dude, you got to do this. And I was like, I don't think I should. This is, thank you for, showing me this class and her, maybe I'll just take another one of her workshops or whatever. And Christy's like, no, dude, you need to go for it. So I'm like, all right. So, and I'm telling myself the entire time, what's the worst that could happen? I get accepted, like that's kind of my mentality about this. And I talked to Dominic about it too. I was like, okay, imagine that John Carpenter was giving you a master class in filmmaking. Would you do whatever it was that you could to be in this? And he was like, oh my God, in a heartbeat. Like, he didn't even hesitate. So I'm like, all right, that's okay. So I filled out the second application. Second application was more like, what's your day-to-day like? Do you have kids? Where are you from? What's your job? Kind of like those types of questions. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. One of them was, how did you hear about Carmel? And literally my answer was, I have no idea who she is. My friend Christy told me to apply. Like, that is like the worst thing to say on a job application. Like, you don't say, like, I don't know what McDonald's is, but my mom told me to apply. Like, that's essentially what I said. So I submitted the application on Friday night. I get a response on Monday morning, and I open up my email, and I just see that it's from her team. And I'm thinking, okay, like, maybe I can see it in, like, the subject line, like, because I couldn't get, like, first few lines of the email in my inbox. So I read it, and I was like, oh, it doesn't tell me if I'm accepted or not. So I open it up, and it says, congratulations, you've been accepted to do an interview with Carmel's team. I'm like, and I'm getting kind of nervous. I'm like, okay, well, just because I made it past phase 2 doesn't mean I'm, like, in. I still have to do an interview, and I can still screw that up. I mean, I could say any kind of weird things. So I get a call from her team, and they're like, okay, so Carmel wants to do an interview with you in like an hour from now. And I'm thinking, whoa, wasn't I supposed to have an interview with like her team first? And if the team liked me, then I'd be passed on to an interview with Carmel. Like, that's what they had explained. The
5 tiers of Carmel.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty much, that's what it was. And they're just like, nope, she wants to meet with you right away. So can you do an interview in like an hour? I'm like, I'm still at work right now. Can we push this out to like, I don't know, 3? And they're like, oh yeah. So I get home. I'm like super nervous now. She's gonna be calling me, and I'm waiting. 3 o'clock comes, 3 o'clock goes. I'm like, oh God, it's the worst. Like when you're expecting a phone call at a certain time and it doesn't come. And then 3:30 comes and 3:30 goes. I was like, what is going on? 4 o'clock comes, she calls. She's like, I'm so sorry, I was working on this case, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, no problem. Like, what am I gonna say? Like, you jerk, like, no, obviously she was busy. So she's like, here's what I like about you. You're from South Dakota. You have some semi-professional reading experience. You seem really grounded. You actually, you have a normal job. I like that. So I want you to be a part of my team. And I was like, what?
Nice.
She's like, she's like, well, are you interested? I'm like, yes, because that part of my brain was like, well, you already came this far, like you did go through with the Friday night application. You better say yes, you idiot. So I said yes, and then it was like a couple of days, or like the next day or a couple days later, we get the coursework. So it was 3 months of intense study on like all the spirituality stuff. I had to do like a ton of reading. Like my first month was like 8 books in 1 month.
Jeez.
Yeah, plus like doing readings for friends and family, plus trying to work a full-time job, plus buying all the stuff that I need. The second month was like 6 books, and then the third month was like 4 books. I was like, what the heck? Like I almost thought it should get more intense, but it was actually kind of like easing up, but also increasing on the amount of readings that you're doing. So today she sent out an email saying, basically, it's go time. We're doing the full program now. And I'm like, I thought we were supposed to start like June 1, but it's now, I guess, can I say the date? Yeah, I'll say the date.
Yeah.
It's May 30th right now. So, yeah. And I get to meet her in person on June 1st because there's like a convention up there. So they sent us an email, and there's this healers convention on June 1st. And she's like, and I expect to see you guys there. And it's like, well, I guess I'm going to Canada. So that's a thing. So I got my passport, which came super fast. Like I applied on May 4th, and I got it by May 14th.
Whoa.
Right? And that was expedited service too. Like I was expecting at least May 21st.
Yep.
So, but May 14th, I was like, I'll take it. I got a flight out of Sioux Falls, super cheap, like $540.
Damn.
Yeah. And then my hotel, rental car, all that stuff. The only thing I'm nervous about is the driving in Canada because it's kilometers versus miles per hour. So I think I'll be fine. I don't know. So yeah, so that's kind of my journey. So if you want to get readings with me, please hit me up on Facebook. I will be happy to. And if you get me now, my rates are definitely going to be cheaper now because a year from now they won't be. So get in while it's good.
There you go. Get in on the psychic ground floor.
Yeah, get on the ground floor before I get... Well, I mean, I'll get better, but I mean, like, before I get more expensive.
I would like to point out that something that our listeners wouldn't be aware of is that every night when we start one of these shows, Travis always appears in a puff of smoke. He's wearing a top hat and a cape.
It's true.
And Ari, the whole show, she hovers like several inches off of the surface of the couch.
I am so fucking zen.
And with that, have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
We'll see you next week.
Macabre Grimoire is a production of theSiouxEmpire.com. Learn more at macabregrimoire.com.
Last night